Hello and welcome to a special episode of On the Platform with the Game Train. This time, it's me, Karl Smith here, aka The Lyrical, and I'm going to be chatting with Tenielle Lynch, who is the XP Esports High School Coordinator. So, it was a very, very exciting opportunity to get Tenielle here to have a chat. Tenielle, how you doing?
Very good, thanks, Karl. Thanks for having me today.
Of course, I was really looking forward to having this chat. It's nice and simple and clarifying. And what I like about this is that it's esports for high schools, which I think is I'm a bit jealous because I'm sure you must hear this a lot. But like, where were you when I was at high school?
I hear that literally all the time, and even I think it as well. But I managed to catch like the tail end of high school esports in year 12. Me and my friends used to like organize some Halo LANs and Call of Duty LANs. But that was like definitely not as involved as it is now. No teachers really got involved in that. So, yeah, I hear that all the time. Where was this when I was in school?
Yeah, of course. And I guess you didn't have the data to show the teachers back then of like, look at the kind of income you could get, and look at this like legitimacy of this kind of career. And back then it'd be a lot more difficult to kind of sell the concept. But no, geez, yeah, that's the first thing that came to mind when I saw like high school coordinator. What I was reading gaming magazines on the back of the footy bleachers, trying to be ignored. So, but yeah, so mostly your role is teaching the concepts of esports and running these tournaments as well.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So my role is to go out and foster high schools across, it started with Queensland, but we're going to be expanding out a lot more, and basically work with the teachers and in turn the students on how best to incorporate esports into their school or their curriculum. A lot of the time it's just me educating some of the older generations about esports. You don't really need to educate these young people. They know all about it.
Yes.
And a big goal is to change or to close that gap between, the understanding of video games and esports that the parents and teachers have compared to what their students have, because, all the young people know about it. And it's something that their parents and teachers really should know about as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such I'm finding, especially outside of school, it's just becoming such a more known quantity and like just such a viable way to go. I'm hearing about parents who just, kind of like old school parents who used to like wake the kids up early and take them to tennis training every single day. And I'm starting to hear about parents who do the same with kids. Like, oh no, he comes home and he has a healthy meal and then he gets on and plays this one particular game. And then we talk about strategies. And then, each morning we work on that. And I've heard different stories about that. And then like people just kind of pushing it as a sport and encouraging it and saying, how you doing? How many wins did you get? How well did you do? All right, we'll try again tomorrow. Get some rest. And it's just like, it's kind of exciting.
Yeah, gone are the days where the video gamer was the 30-year-old dude in his mother's basement, right? Like,
yeah,
that was the old perception. These days, it's definitely more of a career path. You have a lot more support. There's a lot more research and opportunities for people of all ages to get into the industry. And it's not just for the players either, but we can get into that later.
Yeah, and a lot more backup with people like professional, intelligent people like yourself to represent them, to make them not feel so silly with their dreams or their careers or something, when they go and say, tell mom and dad or the teacher, when someone like you can back them and they can have someone on their team, like behind them, just it must feel so much nicer for them. You're talking about countering negatives earlier about like, along with teaching the concept of esports as a basic concept. Have you encountered anything like that where it's been a bit harder to crack or you weren't able to sort of convince a school to back it?
Most of the time, the only time schools haven't been able to get on board is because, they're quite busy. The teachers don't have the time to implement it yet. But overall, we've had a really great success in terms of getting teachers and even parents to understand actually how implementing esports into curriculum can help the students. We're not saying that, video games are great for kids and everyone should be playing them 24/7. But what we are saying is that, look, 80% of young people in Australia and New Zealand are playing video games. And they're going to continue to play video games. They don't need that encouragement. What they do need is support, guidance, and some sort of structure in that, hopefully a classroom environment that can help them use that to their potential and also learn how to balance things like their studies, their sleep, their sports, exercise, how to eat well, and then also work as a team in communication and anger management and discipline and stuff like that too. So video games are honestly here to stay. They're not going anytime soon. So instead of, working against them, it's really good to work with them.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds so magic. Like, what a beautiful way to use the medium that's already being used and showing them how to take it in a healthy way. And I just
incorporate it into their lives in a healthy way, so it can become something that builds their career or builds their passions or just builds their confidence. That's a really big thing in the schools. Gone are the days where a student would sit on the sidelines of swimming and sports carnivals for the whole 5 years that they're in high school, and now they're actually able to sit there and represent their school and be proud of something that they've achieved. Whether or not they go professional, I used to play soccer in school, and it was a big part of my life, but I was never planning to go professional. But it taught me a lot about camaraderie and sportsmanship and communication and stuff too. So there's a lot of different positives in that.
Absolutely. That big thing about parents talking about putting their kids in sports at school, and a huge part of that, and it's, I guess, something that they don't see because of the old stereotypes of gaming, but is that camaraderie and teamwork and being part of a team, and people counting on you and you helping. But video games has always been seen as something that's quite lonely to parents, because all they see is one child in the room, but they don't know that there's 8 of you in that chat and that everyone does count on each other.
Video games have done that full circle. Back in the 80s, when my mother was my age or a bit younger, they had arcade games, and it was very social. You go down to the local arcade, you play with your friends, you have some drinks, and you hang out. And then, the PlayStation and Xbox came out in 1990s, early 2000s, and that's where, everybody's sitting at home, single-player games, and not being very social. But then, come 2010 or so, things start going online, the internet's getting faster, more and more people have access to it, and you've got a social platform again where people are really hanging out and able to engage from all over the country and the world.
Yeah, that's actually really beautiful. I love that so much. I love I love, there's something about it, it's like going to a sport and being part of a team, but there's also something so beautiful about this big kind of area here that can help with actually learning to communicate or learning to overcome simple things like anxiety and whatnot, because you can actually be represented as the self that you want to be with, something as simple as a different avatar, and then you can still go and communicate and be part of a team and connect and really do something, but you still have a bit of protection there. You're not putting yourself out in the open as your human vulnerable self just yet, and then slowly you can, I guess, learn to figure that out as you become comfortable with your teams and other teams, and then you can go out to more public areas and meet people. Well,
to be honest, this is something that young people have been doing regardless of video games. People meet each other on Snapchat, on Instagram, and they go and meet in real life in person, which is a great thing, but it can also be, a bit of a dangerous thing too. So a lot of parents don't actually know that this stuff's going on, but if they get more engaged and more involved in their child's life, and they know that they're, little Jimmy here has a friend called George who lives in Melbourne, and they chat all the time. They've been friends for 2 years, and the family's going for a trip to Melbourne, not during COVID, but going for a trip to Melbourne, and he wants to meet George. At least the parents know that, they know who George is, and they understand that great connection that the young kids have, because that's the age that we live in now. We meet people online, people date online, people become best friends, people become work colleagues all online these days. And whilst I don't think that should replace physical relationships or physical friendships where you see someone face to face, but it's definitely something that has made its way into our society. It's how we function. So actually using high school esports competitions and workshops and stuff like that, parents can, and teachers as well, can teach the kids about online security, cyberbullying, how not to conduct yourself online. If you read something in particular online, what to do in that instance, so if you're bullied or something like that. And if the student feels like their parents understand their passions, or they understand esports, or they understand that the games they're playing, I feel like they are more open to talk to their parents about any issues that they have facing it. I talk to a lot of young people, hundreds and hundreds across Queensland, and half of them say like, "Oh, my parents don't watch me play; they don't really understand." And I'm like, "Oh, would you ever talk to them about the games?" Nah, they don't care. It's like, wow, like, hello, like your parents would probably love to know about your passions, but it's either not necessarily the student's fault or the child's fault, but it's also the parents' fault, because they don't really show that interest either. It's like this whole aspect of their child's life that they're missing out on. If your child scores a hat trick in soccer, or scores several goals and stuff like that in AFL, Like, you're going to give them a high five, you're going to congratulate them, you're going to show them that you're proud of them. But if they are particularly good at this strategy game that, you know, they're one of the top 10 or top 1% in Australia, but they can't relate to you, that, you know, it's this whole aspect that you're missing out on. So I think it's a really good way, you know, breaking down that barrier. Allows you to alleviate trust, and then also leverage, you know, more advice and stuff like that, so you can get more involved in your young person's life online.
Wow, that's so true. There's so many more layers to what you're doing. It's quite I feel like it's quite important. It's not just a bunch of tournaments and having fun. It goes quite deep. And
yeah, I mean, the tournaments are just learning tools really for the young people, right? Like, you can sit there and have the students sit in front of a whiteboard and online bullying is bad and cybersecurity and safety and, you know, stranger danger. And yeah, they're going to listen, but are they actually really going to learn if they're not sitting there doing it and faced with those situations?
Yeah,
I always think, yeah, anytime that we ever have like a bullying case or something like that, and it's very few actually, but anytime we do, teachers get right on it, parents get right on it, and then the student has an opportunity to learn. Yep. You know, why what they said was inappropriate. Whereas, you know, you don't know what they're typing on a Friday night. They're sitting in their room for 2-3 hours and no one's watching what they're doing, right? Or what they're reading. So
that's so, and they're uninvolved. And even as simple as like what you were saying about, you know, when kid scores a hat trick or something and it's a big high five, and like, or you watch them at the game and they do particularly well, you go home and mom or dad talks to the other and goes and says, hey, you know, our kid was really good today. I think let's put him into some serious things after school and let's look into this and encourage him. So, or you see them at the talent quest singing a song and they're like, wow, that, you know, actually I didn't realize, but now that we're watching and supporting our child, we can see like she's actually a wonderful singer. Let's put her on something like The Voice or some singing lessons after school, and let's encourage that. And learning that this is a viable thing, if they could see them and be like, wow, you're one of the top 10, well done, go you. And hopefully those similar conversations could happen at the dinner table, like, you know, our kid's actually really good at this. Maybe after school we put them into a little bit of training and try and encourage. And like, I can't even think how that's a viable thought, but people with your role making that possible is really awesome. And like, what better time than now?
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of those kids that, you know, who are really good at certain games, they're the ones who often champion the esports programs at their school. So they're the ones who, they'll reach out to us, they'll ask us questions, and then they'll put it forward to their teachers and get it going. So even for the students in high school who, they really like playing video games, but they're not necessarily that good. But, you know, they want to be on the esports team, they want to be part of a team, they want to grow and learn. You know, those guys, you might have a student that wants to study psychology, for example, at university. These days, there are such things as esports psychologists. They're like sports psychologists, but they go around and travel with, you know, professional gamers because, you know, there are a lot of young people who play games. 19, 20-year-olds definitely need that sort of mindset check and that training and that support from a psychologist. Then you've got team managers and event managers. You've got marketing. You've got cybersecurity. Like, there is so much in the esports industry, just like the sports industry, that offers more than just the star role, more than just like the players on the field.
Of course. It's so obvious now when you say it, but to think about it on the spot, you just think, oh, esports and the coach or something, you know, and the host there. But there's so much potential. Yeah, that's awesome. And I did see you had a few tournaments coming up. We'll get into those specific details at the end of the interview. But one that I saw that interested me, like, is kind of what you're talking about right now. You had something about like young farmers playing the farming simulator.
Yeah, this is a bit of a random one. Because the Eka show, which is the Eka Royal show, the Brisbane show that happens every year, that's obviously very farming oriented. And last year we had a really great event. We had a whole bunch of students from the Brisbane area come and play League of Legends on the main stage. And it was a bit of a unique event for that time because it's the first time they've ever seen esports there. This year it was cancelled, obviously, because of the pandemic.
Yes.
But we're still going ahead with something smaller and also related to the Eka. And there is actually a game out there, the Farming Simulator, and that's, you know, by Giant Software. And they have been all over supporting young people to come and represent their school. We're just doing a small tournament, 3v3. There's 8 different teams and 7 different schools coming along to compete for just a little bit of prize money. But most of all, it's just to get them involved in doing something different. So it's honestly, the game is it's 3v3, and, you know, one team might have to stack hay bales with tractors faster than the other one, and one guy is going along and changing the hay into bales, and the other guy's coming along and picking it up and stacking it, and there's someone else doing something else, and they'll go 3v3. There's a time limit, and it's a bit of a race to see who can finish first and also do it properly. So yeah, that's going to be kind of fun.
That sounds like a blast, and I've never said that to do with Farming Simulator before. But
yeah, no. I mean, usually for me, it's just something, I'll have a drink on a Friday night and hang out with friends and just play some Farming Simulator, listening to music. But actually, there's an esport, and it's quite popular in Europe, especially. So we're going to be running that one. That's on the 7th and 8th of August.
Okay. I want to get right into that as well and talk about how we can, how all of us and the listeners can get involved and how we can see it and follow that. But I do want to ask, how long have you been doing this role specifically for schools?
So I started last year in January of 2019.
Yep.
I started working with the University of Queensland, who were looking into esports and looking into running something in the area for high schoolers. And my job basically was to come along and go and recruit schools to play League of Legends in the Queensland Championship. And then we had about 30 schools and 45 teams. That was just like our pilot year. And then the winning team goes on to verse the rest of the country as well as New Zealand. And then we did a few live events with XP Esports, so including the ECHA, that was one of our main ones.
Okay.
And so I've just been working closely with them for the past 18 months or so. And then this year, we managed to grow the 30 schools to, I think, about 55 schools or something like that. So because of the whole pandemic, it did slow down. And 85 teams, which was great. And then I also jumped across to XP Esports because we wanted to launch several esports that were offered solely online and available for students that were missing out on everyday sport like soccer and swimming and rugby, etc. So esports was like the only sport that wasn't shut down in schools throughout that April-May period.
Yeah, how interesting. That's a little bit of a flex that you can have there.
Definitely.
Wow, okay, that's super cool. And now, so I'm just as curious as probably a lot of our listeners, but where and how do you actually, I mean, now it's a bit different, and we'll get into that right after this question, but normally, how and where are you holding these tournaments? Are they at school? Are they inside the gymnasium or in a big media room? I can't even quite picture it. All I know is the giant, sports stadiums of esports, and I can't see high school kids filling
how it works.
those.
Yeah, well, essentially XP hold a lot of live events, so they'll hold it here in Brisbane at some LAN cafes at the university or at the ECHA, for example. But a lot of the high school stuff is actually played remotely from school. So you'll have Matthew Flinders Anglican College on the Sunshine Coast versus Somerset College on the Gold Coast, and they will sit in their classroom at 4:15 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon or a Monday afternoon, and then at 4:30 they'll jump into their game lobby and then they'll verse each other online. And so that way you've got schools from all over the state actually able to compete against each other. Maybe there's a school up in Roma or Chinchilla or Far North Queensland that can verse Brisbane State High School or some other major school down here. So it really actually that's how it mainly runs. And then if you have like the grand finals, we generally try and do a live event for that. If it's just Brisbane based, that's easy. People can travel to, we had one at University of Queensland last year or the ECHA or any other live event that we choose. But generally it's just played from school, from online. During the pandemic, we had kids jump on from home and they all met up with their friends online, and then they still verse the other school. So we're able to keep it going. But it's been really, really cool. And it also means, for me, I absolutely love sports, but I grew up in the Atherton Tablelands. And so I was a pretty good runner, and I'd come first and I'd do really well. And then I'd come to Brisbane and I'd just get smoked because everybody down here, the competition level is so much higher and the training level is so much higher. And that's the problem that you have when you're so isolated. So actually with high school esports, they're versing the best from the beginning. And it forces it to become more competitive and stuff too. So
I'm really glad we're having a chat because there's so many good points here, and that even that versing the best straight away helps just carve better athletes.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really cool. And as far as it's so simple, but it's the easiest way, just doing it from your own classroom and versing the other ones. Like compared to every single other extracurricular sport where you're driving every weekend and parents supporting, like they love supporting the kids, but they're all kind of moaning and groaning going, I got to drive to Toowoomba this weekend and it's cold and I'm tired and it's raining, or so on and so. That's really cool that you can do it from your own school where they're comfortable, and still most of it is done like that. And yeah, that answers that question about the whole COVID situation. Of it must have been just one of the easiest things to transition into compared to any other sort of extracurricular activity.
Yeah, it was definitely still manageable. There was a lot of adjustments that we had to make, but we definitely made it work. And honestly, I can applaud the teachers for that, because a lot of the teachers are the ones championing this project in their own classrooms, and without them, it wouldn't be possible. So, the students owe the teachers so much and how much they're doing.
That's so cool. Are you, I guess you did sort of mention that a little bit earlier, but are you looking at making this nationwide?
Yeah. We have a bit of interest. At the moment, it's just Queensland based, but we have a bit of interest from other states. I've had some schools from WA reach out, New South Wales and Victoria as well. So we will be expanding the tournament as we go. We're just starting small, getting it right, building interest locally, and then as we expand, we'll get some more states and schools coming in as well.
Oh, wonderful. And lastly, do you have any, I guess, contacts or I don't quite know how to put it, but like a situation with the actual Australia representative esports teams and things like that, of like where these students might be heading, or some mentorship or anything like that?
Yeah, so at the moment we work a little bit with the Chiefs. So the Chiefs is an esport organization. They've got League of Legends and Call of Duty and a couple other ones as well. Wildcards, who do Rainbow Six.
Yep.
We also work a little bit with them. And then there's the Canberra Havocs, who do Rocket League. So as we're going, we're developing these bridges between high school and professional. And we also work with, University of Queensland, QUT, and a few other universities too, because there is a university league, believe it or not. And some universities out there give out scholarships to players to come and represent them in the league. So especially in America. America and Europe is kind of where this industry is booming. America has the numbers, Europe has the bad weather. So
yes, of course.
That's why it booms. But we do battle with the big outdoors here.
Yep.
However, Australians are very much into their sport, and they are very competitive and supportive of each other too. So it will grow. It's not going to be as big as America, but I think it'll still be very big for Australian standards.
Magic. Well, Tenielle, I think what you're doing is legitimately a beautiful thing, and I thank you for it, and I hope there's a lot more people like you that come up and help us grow in this industry for the young ones.
Yeah. My overall goal is let's get as many high schools and even primary schools involved in esports at the young over the next few years.
That's brilliant. So can you please tell us where we can see some of these upcoming events?
Yeah, for sure. If you want to check out the website, head to xpesports.gg and you'll see a high school league tab on there. And also, if you go to the bottom of that homepage, you'll see a bit of information about the Young Farmers Cup, which is on the 7th and 8th of August.
Nice.
If you want to watch it live, you can head to twitch.tv. That's a website that broadcasts a whole bunch of people playing games live, and our tag is XPHSL. So twitch.tv/XPHSL for High School League. And that will be every Monday afternoon about 4:20 p.m. You'll see Rocket League. And Thursday afternoons at about 4:20 p.m. again, you'll see Rainbow Six Siege. And then on the 7th and 8th of August, on Friday afternoon at about 3:30 p.m. And then Saturday at 1 p.m., you'll see some of the Farming Simulator stuff happening.
Awesome. Okay, so plenty to check out. All right. Well, that takes us close to the very end of this interview, this special episode of On the Platform for Game Train Podcast. Thank you so much for hanging out. Before you leave us, we do have our two little segments that we want to jump into and just chuck at you real quick. Could you give us your current lame train?
The lame train. I mean, everything to do with high school esports so far has actually gone quite well. I think probably the things that I would change is trying to get a little bit more government hype, government involvement with
nice.
High school esports. They are jumping on board. It's just, it's slowly happening. It'd be nice to have them faster. And I think honestly that's about it, because I've not really had any negative experiences so far with this whole trip.
Well,
And
that's-
Australian internet. Let's go.
Yeah.
Better internet, please.
Oh my
Because
goodness.
there are so many regional schools out there that want to get involved, but they're still on satellite internet that, on a cloudy day
yucky.
doesn't work.
Yep. Oh, of
Yeah.
course. That's a good lame train. That is actually. We have that ourselves quite often in the episodes.
Yeah.
And then, of course, that brings us to the hype train.
Hype train. Boom.
I'm just really excited to see esports grow in the grassroots industry. So with young people, I'm really excited to see every school having some sort of esports curriculum or some sort of class in whether it's extra activities or in the actual learning curriculum. And I'm excited to see how we can get some pathways going for young people who are interested in the esports industry, not just for the pro gamers or the kids who are avid want to be professionals, but for the ones that are just interested in general in the industry and want to go on to do graphic design or game design, but in esports. So, I'm just excited to see how it's going to grow.
Oh, man, that's awesome. Thank you so much. Listeners, that was Tenielle Lynch, XP Esports High School Coordinator. Tenielle, thank you so much for hanging out today and taking the time to chat to me.
Thanks for having me, Karl.
Brilliant. For anyone else having a listen, thank you very much. You can find us on GameTrain.com. Jump on the Twitter at GameTrain Talk. My name's Karl Smith, and this has been Game Train.